Hello everybody, my name is Lorenzo. I'm a PhD in architecture at the faculty member at CU University, where I teach at the Department of Architecture and Design. My presentation is entitled Architecture, Technology and the Environment, Proposals for the Regeneration of a Urban Context. A series of urban interventions carried out in the early 70s at the MIT Center for Advanced Visual Study I presented in this presentation. I will show the work developed by the CAFS Fellows on the early years of the center under the guidance of the artist Georgi Kepes that was focused on exploring new ways of understanding relationships between technology and the urban environment. The presentation will analyze part of the history of the center, where artists worked on scientific and technological projects looking for the regeneration of the urban environment. When Georgi Kepes inaugurated the Center for Advanced Visual Studies at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, he was 61 years old, and for many people it was the culmination of a long professional and academic career. For Kepes, the art had to assimilate the use of scientific and technological tools. To that end, it was necessary to promote the connections between different disciplines. The center was inaugurated in November 1967 around two main lines. The first one was focused on supporting artists that became research fellows at the center to develop their personal projects in total freedom, and the second was related to large-scale collaborative projects that involved all the artists. The first line proposed by Kepes was the exploration with new technologies. To that end, he invited engineers and scientists from the university to collaborate in the activities of the center. Since its earliest days, the center became a meeting point for artists, engineers, and scientists where they could explore new technologies to change the environment together with a variety of artists. The first artists to join the center were the photographer William Garnett, the artist Wen-Jin Tsai, Otto Pin, and Mikio Ihara, and the architect Mauricio Bueno. When William Garnett arrived at the center, he was working in a project of aerial photography related to the nature reserves of the United States that were in danger of disappearance. During his stay at the center, he published in Life magazine a photographic report including beautiful pictures of landscapes that had a great impact on the society, especially on those who work on the defense of the conservation of the environment. Kepes found in Garnett's work a parallelism with his ideas as he was trying to show the possibilities of the technological advance of the photography to create work of art. In 1969, Kepes invited the artist Wen-Jin Tsai, who worked on cybernetic sculptures exploring the phenomenon of his apparent movement and the interaction with people. His sculptures move rhythmically after receiving sounds from the exhibition room by means of some microphones that modify the frequency of a few strokes hidden in the sculptures. Frank Popper described Tsai's sculptures as dancers, whose movement was taking place thanks to the vibrations transmitted by the electronic devices hidden in the sculptures. They were activated by the environmental sounds, being the people of the exhibition room responsible of modifying the choreographic movements of these dancers. The electronics and the cybernetics were used here as tools with which visitors established a dialogue with the sculptures, which translated into a visual movement. Kepes met Otto Pin in November 1965 on the inauguration of the exhibition Pin Light Ballet that was held at the Howard Weiss Gallery of New York. And once Pin joined as a fellow artist at the CAFS, he had already exhibited his well-known series of sculptures of light and movement from his period as a zero group artist. As a fellow, Pin designed a series of environments based on projections of lights and movements and also worked in cooperation with the Center for Space Research on a series of sky art installations, where he tried to combine the phenomenon of light and gravity with natural elements using transparent inflatable pipes of polyethylene suspended in the air. Inspired by MIT Hack's Skyline, Payne designed memorable works as Lightline Experiment in 1968, a field of hot air sculptures over fire in the snow in 1969 at the MIT, Elements in 1969 at the Howard Weiss Gallery, and some others. With all these works, he designed installations in the environment that involve the participation of citizens in their perception and trying to achieve a major impact on the urban environment through the humanization of the public space. In 1969, the Ecuadorian architect Mauricio Bueno joined the CAPS. He worked on a series of experimental light projects using laser, where a laser light was projected across a focal point perforated in a cylinder full of water and provided with mirrors placed in the interior surface. Later, this work evolved to a series of urban projects that he called light towers, developed in cooperation with Kay Larson and Mikio Ihara, where they used laser light projected from a structure conformed with a rotating cylinder in which a series of mirrors were placed. They looked like windmills and generated geometric-like patterns of a variety of shapes that responded to their movement. Following this same idea of rescaling proposals to transform them into large-scale urban interventions, the sculptor Mikio Ihara started to work in some proposals as a CAPS fellow in 1970. From this period, in his work to mention wall sculpture placed at the street office building in Massachusetts, at a canopy designed for the Yosenji Buddhist temple in Tokyo, or suspended screen for the Fujifilm company also in Tokyo. All of them were evolutions of some of his experimental kinetic works of art, and the step prior to the design of urban projects as Wayne Tree, where he placed a sculpture on a public space that modified its appearance according to the wind, Plaza Sculpture or Pond of Dreams that were exhibited in the Universal Exhibition celebrated in Osaka in 1970, becoming the first environmental sculptures that he carried out during his stay at the CAPS. If the first CAPS aim for the CAPS was focused on supporting artists, providing them with a study where they could develop their work in cooperation with university scientists and engineers, the second was centered in the accomplishment of large environmental projects that arose from the collaboration among them. The first collaborative project that was developed at the CAPS was the Boston Harbor project that started in the autumn of 1967 when CAPS proposed the artist the accomplishment of a kinetic light tower to be placed in Boston Harbor. The aim was twofold. First, the regeneration of this devalued area of the city, and secondly, the creation of landmark as a symbolic monumental door of the city. CAPS stay at this project more than become the ostentation of technological sophistication, had to be a symbol that might have a relevant role in the celebration of the bicentenary of the United States, since at that moment it was thought that the commemorative act would take place in the city of Boston. To understand the idea of monument associated to the large-scale kinetic light tower raised by CAPS, it should be mentioned the influence of the first light dynamic tower designed by the sculptor Nicolas Schoffer, who led a cultural movement in the beginning of the 60s that was claiming the need of a useful and functional art to serve the society. The cybernetic light dynamics Schoffer's project, inspired by Cubofuturism, Russian constructivism, and cybernetic theories, materializing Tour Cybernetiques, a 50 meters high tower that reacted to the stimuli of the urban environment to create sound environments thanks to photoelectric cells and microphones integrated in the tower that capture variations in light and sound to create movement. Influenced by software project, Kepes suggested to the CAPS fellows the design of a large-scale kinetic light tower, offering them the support of engineers, town planners, and architects in search for a solution that satisfied the social and urban requirements of a project and the technical requirements of large-scale tower. In the following years, Kepes encouraged artists to develop large-scale urban projects under the conviction that artists could be capable of promoting the application of new technologies to face the urgent need to stop the environmental degradation in cities. Nevertheless, the idea of materializing the Boston Harbor proposals was not possible, due to the lack of financial support that made it impossible for the artists to move on from the theoretical project to an experimental stage. Also, there was a fact that caused a moment of crisis among the artists when they were told that finally the Boston Harbor project would never be realized, since the principal events of the bicentenary would take place in Philadelphia instead of Boston. This caused some tension among some artists, who, disillusioned, reproached Kepes that in spite of his commendable aspirations, the ambition and the visionary nature of the urban project developed at the center made their attainment impossible. In spite of that, artists kept working on Boston Harbor proposal each academic year, and some of them were gathered by the Massachusetts District Commission to be part of a wide debate thanks to the exhibition that included all these projects as exploration at the Hayden Gallery in 1969 and the Smithsonian Institution's National Collection of Fine Art in Washington in 1970, the exhibition Multiple Interaction Theme, Boston Celebration in 1975, and You Are Here, Boston Celebration 2 in 1976 at the Boston Institute of Contemporary Arts. Specifically, the aim of the proposals was the regeneration of some degraded areas of the city. The initiatives made use of technology to assist architects, artists, and engineers that worked collaboratively and participatively with citizens to improve the city environment, a whole premonition about the ways the cities are being designed nowadays. The CAPS was created with the objective of developing research in the field of art, architecture, and urban planning to demonstrate the viability of new technologies as a creative tool and their application in collaborative projects on an urban scale that involve citizens seeking to reduce the environmental impact produced by the rapid growth of modern cities. The works tried to demonstrate the viability of using technology as a creative tool, the fruitful interaction of artists, scientists, and engineers in the development of projects, the possibility of linking technology to a diversity of devices, and the relevance of collective participation in shaping the city. All of them have greatly influenced interactive architectures and intelligent environments that began to materialize in specific proposals already in the 80s, and even today are helping us to visualize and raise awareness among citizenships on negative parameters that may affect our urban environment in the context of the current smart cities. Thank you very much.